what do you think about the state of the Washington Post and kind of what this story says about journalism right now?
Well, I think that the Washington Post is legacy media, which is a term that I've used. They basically, it's not really journalism. It's just fronting whatever opinions the lamestream happens to have at the time. And I think that's a sort of low-hanging fruit, even pointing that out, because the average person, I think, understands that, which is why all of these various tabloid rags, which call themselves corporate media, are in decline. I think that the Taylor Lorenz hit piece on Libs of TikTok, though, is one of those few that goes beyond the pale, even more than normal. Normally, it's lies by omission, lies by structure. So they'll have an article and the title will say one thing, and then 5 or 6 paragraphs down, which nobody reads to that. Let's face it, the average person doesn't. Then the real story is there. This is one wherein you've got a direct hit piece against an independent content creator who's simply taking and curating content that is already publicly available as though that was some sort of sin or crime. I find it very, very funny that if people on the left want to put material out there, and they are on TikTok and elsewhere, the idea is that if their ideas can stand on their own merit, if their ideas are good, then you would want wider exposure, even if it's critical exposure, negative exposure, so to speak, for Libs of TikTok or someone else. It seems like with the Washington Post, they're running interference for a bunch of people who don't want wider exposure. And it's very, very strange as a content creator, as someone who's made YouTube videos, etc., that you wouldn't want that exposure, that you would need someone to run interference for you and try to destroy a group or an individual that is actually giving you more clicks, more potential revenue.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that the whole argument for the Taylor Lorenz Washington Post piece was this is anti-LGBTQ content, but these are people speaking in their own words from their heart, and they're posting this presumably on a public TikTok account, not a private social media account. So they're putting it out there for the world. If you don't want something to see it, I would definitely not put it on my Twitter or any of my public social media. I don't think anyone would care about whatever I post as much as some of the views as Libs on TikTok get. But it is kind of this irony of people are backpedaling once it's out there.
Yeah, and TikTok is Chinese spyware anyway. So I mean, we shouldn't be surprised at the fact that the material on TikTok is necessarily low grade, because of course it's going to be low grade. It's on TikTok. What I would say is this, though, as a content creator, years ago, if you got featured by someone who had a larger audience, and I know Libs of TikTok, I think, has 860,000 or some odd Twitter followers alone. That's a lot of followers, getting up towards 1 million. Even if you got featured by someone who didn't like you, generally you had a field day with it. The idea was that you got more attention, and even if a lot of those people, they were going to troll you and they didn't like what you had to say, the idea was that if you had any talent at all, you could put forth your argument, you could win some of those people over that are just sort of there because the other account is so much larger. And I can't imagine that most of these TikTok accounts by random teachers, which everyone hates teachers anyway, I can't imagine that the average TikTok account has 800,000+ followers.
You're completely right. Speaking of teachers, I've noticed that a lot of these teachers are from Florida, which has that Parental Rights and Education Act that some people have decided to rebrand to the Don't Say Gay bill. So I reached out to Christina Pushaw. I'm sure you know she's the press secretary for Ron DeSantis.
Yeah,
she's a big supporter of Libs of TikTok on Twitter. She likes to retweet them and help spread some of their videos. So I reached out to her. Granted, this was prior to the big explosion that happened the other day with the whole doxing. And she said, I'm going to read this as a quote: social media videos in which teachers or people claiming to be teachers criticize the law and discuss how they might try to circumvent the law sometime in the future are not illegal. The law only applies to classroom instruction, not speech on social media or other speech outside the classroom. With that said, it is important for parents and school district officials to be aware of these videos so they can see for themselves that there have been some troubled people who want to inject inappropriate sexual and gender ideology into K through 3 classrooms. Too many activists, politicians, and members of the media have been gaslighting parents by claiming that there is no sex ed in K through 3 or kindergartners are not learning about transgenderism. Unfortunately, this isn't true, and that's why this new law in Florida is necessary. She says some other stuff too, and I will link to the full statement for transparency like below in the video, but what do you make of that? The things that teachers say on this account are free speech, but it can't translate into the classroom. That's where the murky area comes with this controversial bill.
Yeah, what I would say is that on the taxpayer dime in a public school, as a person, I support gay marriage. I have no problem with people who are LGBT. I don't care about these things. I don't care if someone is transgendered either. What I would say is that any form of sexual education for small children who are clearly not ready for, they're not sexual by nature. They haven't hit puberty yet. They're not even close to it. They're kindergartners or whatever. They should not be instructed on any aspect of these things other than, hey, if someone touches you this way, it's not appropriate. Tell your parent, tell the police officer or something. Other than that, there should be no such education. I would say this, if these were private school teachers, or tutors or something like that, that's an entirely different ballgame. Legally speaking, I support the Florida bill. I have no problem with it. Again, as someone who does not have a problem with someone saying gay, it's not a don't say gay bill. It's a don't indoctrinate little children bill. It's a don't groom children bill. I find the branding, the optics of what the liberals really have done with regards to the Florida bill and similar bills, of course, in other states, is appalling. They effectively want taxpayers like myself to pony up money in order for little children to be indoctrinated into some sort of bizarre sex cult. And it's mind-blowing to me that would happen. As a child of the 90s, effectively, if it had been proposed back then, people would have been waving torches around. And now there are a lot of people that apparently they have no problem with it. I find it funny.
I think the troubling part about it is I had a relative, she reached out to me and she goes, what do you think of this don't say gay bill? And I responded like, oh, you mean the Parental Rights and Education Act in Florida? She genuinely thought that was the name of the bill. So you have people who are just getting their information from social media. I'm so popular, I don't know what that is. You have people just getting their information from social media or headlines. They're not reading articles. They're not taking the 10 minutes that it takes to read the full text of bills online. And that is what they're getting the general consensus of, because it's not called that. And so that's something that I think people haven't necessarily fully grasped. But
well, imagine getting your reality from TikTok. I mean, you're going to be screwed up anyway. So
I think that's another argument we can make too. One thing I wanted to talk to you about in regards to the whole Washington Post Libs TikTok scandal is the allegation of doxing and knocking on someone's doors. I know you mentioned the legacy media. I mean, that used to be me for years. I worked in corporate media, and it at the time was a dream job before a lot of these ethical concerns were directly in my face. And I realized that like my heart just couldn't go through with some of these ethical dilemmas that I was put in. But a lot of people that I've worked with and some people that I respect have come to Taylor's defense. Disclaimer, I've never met her before. But they've come to her defense saying, you know, it's pretty commonplace for reporters to knock on doors when they're under deadline and they're working on a story. I think the missing piece of it is, yeah, it is common. I've done it 1,000 times, but you have an editor calling you, usually an assignment editor or a managing editor, and it's not this kind of story or these kinds of circumstances. It'll be, there's a bill about a new stoplight in a neighborhood and it's controversial and they want you to go knock on doors and get neighbors' reaction from people who live in the neighborhood. Maybe there was a house fire that burned down a house and you knock on the neighbor next door to, get reaction. Oh, I remember I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw smoke coming through the window of my house and I called 911. Or maybe you call somebody and like a business for some Black Friday story and they don't pick up. So you're like, okay, I'm just gonna drive by and see what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't knock on the family members' houses unless you're trying to solve a homicide. And this is not some cold case investigation. This is, you're trying to find the identity of somebody who essentially runs a meme page you don't like.
Yeah.
And you're not even knocking on her door. You're going around to her family members. I think it's my 2 cents on it is they're completely not the same thing. And for people to come to her defense sets this precedent of, oh, we can just go harass people's family members for no good reason. She's not trying to, find out who stole the Declaration of Independence or something crazy. She's just knocking on people's doors, completely making all journalists look bad.
Well, what I would say is that I think that Taylor Lorenz is entirely self-serving in this, and it was probably her idea singularly. What we've seen over the last few years is that unfortunately lower end journos, especially the tech literate ones, have realized that the boomers that control mainline media, legacy media, are retarded. And so what they can do is that they will purposefully antagonize people with larger audiences. Libs of TikTok, myself, I've been subject to this. People like Sargon or Stefan Molyneux, they will deliberately antagonize them in order to get mentioned a lot. Because what happens is that on the internet, you have algorithms, okay? You have search terms and so forth. They realize that it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative attention. It just matters that if it's attention. And so what they'll do is they'll deliberately antagonize large groups of people or people with large audiences. They'll get a hell of a lot of mentions, and then they'll go to their boardroom and they will say, look, I've been mentioned 10 million times in the last week because of this piece that I wrote, and it's perfectly appropriate. It's been editorialized, et cetera, et cetera. I've been mentioned 10 million times. I want a raise. I've been mentioned 10 million times. I want a better position. Or they'll use that as Holt and certain others, I won't use his full name for legal purposes, as others have used it, to try to, as a springboard, to get from one position, which is lower, to a higher one. Now, if you're working for the Washington Post, you're already in a fairly high position. The Washington Post is fairly large, but maybe you want a raise. Maybe you want a promotion. Maybe you want to have a bigger office and be able to hire a staffer. The best way to do that is to antagonize people with considerably larger audiences, in some cases, than the Washington Post itself, and get them to mention you. This is why I'm kind of reluctant even to weigh in on such stories sometimes, because really all it does is add to the dumpster fire that is the attention seeking of these individuals with their talentlessness. And that really is why Taylor Lorenz is talentless, along with Holt and all of these other people. They have no talent whatsoever. They don't conduct journalism in any way, shape, or form. They're not even trying to. It's entirely egotistical.
Well, now I think you know my strategy for reaching out to you. I'm just trying to get someone with considerably larger following. And
well, I mean, you have a larger audience. Probably in a few years, you'll probably be bigger than Taylor Lorenz easily, anyway. So.
Well,
I know that's low hanging fruit.
I guarantee you, if she and I played the name game, you would know plenty of the same people. But I think she and I came to a different fork in the road where I went one way and she went another. You really have to lean into the corporate media philosophy and understand that, like, if you do what management wants you to do, your life will be very comfortable. Or you can go against the grain and do something like you or I do, which maybe might not be as lucrative, but I think is a better fit for me.
Yeah, we have morals, so we took the L as far as the Benji Greens go.
One thing I want to ask you about is, I'm sure you've seen the video of her. She's being interviewed and she's crying all about doxing and social media harassment and, reaching out to people's loved ones. And if irony could kill, I mean, this video is really a 10 out of 10. It's a short video too. I can include it in this video so that
Oh yeah, I've seen
know what I'm talking about.
You feel like any little piece of information that gets out on you will be used by the worst people on the internet to destroy your life. And it's so isolating.
And terrifying.
It's horrifying. I'm so sorry.
You're fine, you're
It's
fine.
overwhelming. It's really hard.
What did you make of that? There are worse things in this world than hypocrisy, but I think hypocrisy is beauty in the sense that it bonds people, because whether you're Democrat, Republican, everyone can bond over the fact that hypocrisy stings, and it stung in that video.
Yeah, I just think that that video is hysterical. And I think that basically the entire internet has seen it at this point, which might explain why Taylor Lorenz has locked off all of her accounts cross-platform.
Oh, really? I reached out
Yeah,
to her
the
via
Twitter,
email
the Twitter.
I didn't have any problem doing it.
Well, maybe well, I don't have her email, but the Twitter account is private. And I actually had been blocked by Taylor Lorenz some time ago, long before this happened. I'm assuming I was part of a block list. I don't think I was singularly pointed out for blocking, but I thought it was funny when I went to the account and saw that I was blocked. I was like, oh, what else is new?
Have you been blocked by a lot of people?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, it's a laundry list of leftoids, because they don't want me to see what they post, because they know they get excoriated.
And as if they don't think that you might have a secondary personal account where you could just go.
I actually don't, because I just don't care enough.
Oh.
Twitter, until Elon Musk owns Twitter, it's too much of a dumpster fire to bother.
But we could do a whole separate episode about the Elon drama. What do you think about the ethical implications of doxing somebody, so to speak? Like, do you think that, look, if someone wants to write an opinion piece about what they think of the whole cultural phenomena of the Libs of TikTok account, fine, go ahead, write it, like, live your dream. I have no problem with that. But I think to do what we consider a hard news piece about a meme page that you just want to kind of burst the bubble up, like, and you just want to release the identity of this person, like, do you think that this was an appropriate thing to dox somebody for, and the implications of that?
No, I oppose doxing in general on principle. I would say, though, in this particular case, it's even worse than normal. Like, sometimes you say, okay, this person's a total scumbag, I'm doxing them. Okay, at least in your mind, you've concocted a reason for doxing them. This is an account that curates content that's already publicly available. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Again, content creator wise, if you're, a TikTok star or whatever they call themselves over on that moron site, you want more clicks, you want more ad revenue or whatever they have over there. Being shouted out by an account with almost 1 million followers, it's not a bad thing, even if much of it's critical.
And there's this power behind being anonymous too. We've seen it before with other accounts that have had these large followings, and they try to get these reporters from, the Atlantic, the New York Times, the Washington Post to like, go find out who these people are, as if they're committing these outlandish crimes and they're trying to, decipher who somebody is on a bank robbery security camera footage. No, like, these are just people who are, again, it's not criminal. Like, do we really need to devote journalistic resources to identifying who these people are? Or is there some kind of vendetta here?
Yeah, and just think about how bored these people must be. We're not going to talk about inflation today. We'll put that on page B. Taylor Lorenz has this hot scoop today about a Twitter account. And this is the way that they actually think. And it's not the first time. They've been doing this for years, especially against, I think, independent content creators. I think what they really have a problem with is the fact that there are people that put information out there, and they have large audiences in the 6-7 figure range, and they're independent. That's what they really have a problem with. I think some of these people are genuinely jealous because they have similar sized or smaller audiences. They're getting 6 figures. They're working for what would be an infamous or famous legacy media brand, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, or whatever, and they just can't cut it. They don't understand why more people don't pay attention to them. It's like CNN Plus. They've got less followers than most significant content creators just on YouTube. let alone cross-platform. They're failing as a site. They pumped out, what was it, $50 million or some crazy amount into it, and they're still failing. And the people that are part of these networks, I think that they get dragged down by that. I think they get demoralized. The one group of people that is capable of rising above that are the more tech literate ones, because they're capable of engaging with creators and antagonizing them. Basically, what they're doing is trolling, but they're doing it for profit.
My last question is, what do you think is next in this saga? I know that Libs of TikTok has been suspended before, and I'm not like the biggest Libs of TikTok fan ever. I do think it is enlightening and shines a light on things that a lot of parents don't know about. So I think if you're a parent, you should definitely be following it. Even if you don't have kids, it might scare you into not having kids or homeschooling them. But I'm not like a yes Libs of TikTok person, even though I do follow it and find it important. I want to give everybody a fair shot. But what do you think is next in this whole Libs of TikTok and Washington Post saga? Because I don't think this is the last we've heard of this. And I also don't think this is the last shot that anyone's going to take at Taylor, or that anybody is going to take at Libs of TikTok.
Well, I think that Taylor Lorenz will keep her lucrative career as a smear merchant. And continue to do the good work of smearing random content creators for the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos tabloid rag.
I bet she doesn't make a lot of money. I'm willing to say she makes less than 6 figures.
Well, I think
somebody who's worked in that industry, I'm willing to guess.
Yeah,
and they don't pay people our age very much.
She seems to be a trust fund baby, so she's not worrying about where her next meal is coming from. I would say for Libs of TikTok, though, Libs of TikTok is getting 10 times as much exposure. What I would recommend to Libs of TikTok, and I'm not even going to use the real name because, doxing, strike while the iron is hot. You've got all of these eyes upon you, all of these content creators. Reach out to a bunch of people, branch out onto a bunch of sites, and get even bigger, and make these people suffer even more, because it's clear they wouldn't be attacking you if they weren't afraid of you. That's the truth of it. That's why they try to deplatform people. When you cut a man's tongue out, it's because you're afraid of what he has to say. And in this case, a woman's tongue. That's clearly what this is about. And as far as Lorenz, of course, she's the useful idiot trying to advance her career. We'll see how far that advance gets.